Good evening, everyone. I have major technological problems here, unfortunately, so I'm just going to have to do it without my video showing. If someone can just unmute themselves and confirm whether you can hear me or not, please.
Yes, I can.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we can.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. So please forgive me, we'll just have to do this audio only. So I wanted to use what may well be our last session, our last share on Tefillah. Then we'll have to see how it goes today, given the technological limitations, and maybe we need one more. I wanted to speak about a couple more themes in davening that we still haven't had time to discuss yet. And the first theme I wanted to talk about is a running topic that goes all the way through Tefillah. And this is that if we look at davening, at the Siddur as a whole, it appears that there are three threads that run through much of our davening, beyond bakasha, beyond requests that we make of Hashem. The first thread is that of nature, creation, the world we live in, and praising and acknowledging that. The second thread is narrowly we can call Torah, or more broadly we can call revelation from Hashem. And the third thread that runs through davening is that of Geula, of redemption. And I just want to explain all three and where we find them in the Siddur. So the first thread is that of looking at the wonders of creation and Teva, the world that Hashem has created. And we find this in certainly in Pesukei de Zimra. We find this in the Birchas Kriyas Shema, the first bracha of Kriyas Shema, Yotze Or V'Choshech. We find this in some of the Shir Shel Yoms. We find this in Baruch Nafshi, which we said a couple of days ago on Rosh Chodesh. This is one theme. If one looks at davening, we talk about creation, the wonders of creation. The second theme that we that runs through davening is Torah. Not only Birchas HaTorah that we say at the beginning of davening, but also Birchas HaShachar, also the brachas on Kriyas Shema, the brachas that we say, we talk about the Tehillim that we say in Pesukei de Zimra, Magid Zavor of Yaakov, Chukov Mishpat of Yisrael. This is Idul Yisrael. This is another theme that runs through davening. We talk about Torah. And the third theme that runs through davening is, of course, Geula, the longing we feel for Geula, whether in Amida, where we have the brachas on the gathering of the exiles, on the building of Yerushalayim, Esamach David, the restoration of the Malchus Beis David, the restoration of the Avodah and the Beis HaMikdash. Indeed, already in Birchas Shachar, Kabit V'Echam Me'Arba Kamtei Sa'aretz, Be'ez Hahi Ovi Eschem, Be'ez Kapsi Eschem, B'Shavei Shvasechem, Enechem Oma Hashem. So this is a theme that we take all the way through Yiratzim U'Fanecha, Shi'abone Beis HaMikdash, B'Mehei V'Yomeinu. This is a third theme that runs through davening. Now, one way of understanding these three themes, beyond the personal bakashas and requests that we make to Hashem, is that Bria should be seen in a sense as bottom up. Bria, awareness of Hashem through creation, starts with us down here on planet Earth, and we reach upwards towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At least that's what we should be doing. We aspire upwards. Torah goes in the opposite direction. Torah is reaching downwards. It's top down. It's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, revealed revelation down to us. One way of thinking about Geula is that Geula is the merging of the gap between these two components. In other words, there is a distance between the Bria and the Torah. The Bria doesn't always live up to the Torah. As much as we want bottom up to elevate from the Bria, from the material and physical existence in creation, we want to elevate upwards and rise it up to Shemayim. Nonetheless, it doesn't always reach up there. So there's a gap between the two. And one way of thinking about Geula is about merging and bridging that gap. And this is a theme the whole way through Tefillah. For example, in the brachas of Kriyas Shema, both in the morning and the evening, the first bracha takes its theme of nature. Yotze HaMa'oros, Umari V'Aravim. Look at the contents of the first bracha of Kriyas Shema. Both in the morning and in the evening in Mariv. And the theme is about, both during weekday and on Shabbos, is about the wonders of nature. We thank Hashem, the Chadish, Ma'aseh Bereshis, the creation, Morabu Ma'aseh Hashem, etc. So we praise Hashem for creation, for the creation of the physical world. The second bracha of Kriya Shema, both in the morning and the evening, is Ava Rabbav Tanu. How? You taught us the Chukei Chaim. The Chaim is Kol Divrei Talmud Tzorasech B'Ava. Lishmoya, to hear, Lilmod L'Lamed, to learn and to teach. Lishma V'Lasos, Dabik Libeinu B'Mitzvah. The second theme of the theme of the second bracha of Kriya Shema is that of Torah. And the third bracha of Kriya Shema, which both in the morning and in the evening, is Ge'ula, as we discussed extensively in our first shir on Tefillah, is the theme of Samoch Ge'ula Tefillah, of linking Ge'ula to Tefillah. So this is a thread that runs through all of them, and in fact it runs through a lot of structure of our day also. Just to share an idea which is already found in the Torah. The Torah is written by the son of the Rosh in a structure that parallels the Shulchan Aruch, the Torah Shulchan Aruch. He talks about a unique feature of the Tefillah on Shabbos. I'm not going to speak about this too much at length. The Tefillah of Shabbos is really its own topic. It's something I've spoken about before in the shul. But uniquely on Shabbos, different to all the rest of the days of the year, is that the Mariv, Shachris, and Mincha Tefillah are all different. Something we don't notice. During the weekday, Shachris, Mincha, Mariv, all identical prayer. On Yom Tov, Shachris, Mincha, Mariv, all identical Tefillah. It's Musaf, the additional Tefillah that's different. Even on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Shachris, Mincha, Mariv is identical. It's Musaf and Ne'ilah, the additional Tefillah, which are different. Shabbos isn't like that. In Shabbos, the theme of the Friday night Tefillah is different to the theme of the Shabbos day, which is different in turn to the theme of Mincha. And if you look at the content of each Tefillah, it parallels these three areas, which in turn parallel three concepts of what Shabbos is about. Shabbos is about Ma'aseh Bereshis, Kisheishis Yomim. Shabbos is about the creation of the natural world, Brias HaOlam. Shabbos is about the unique revelation of Hashem and our unique relationship to Him as Klal Yisrael, Yetzias Mitzrayim and Matan Torah. That's the second theme of Shabbos. And the third theme of Shabbos is Me'ein Olam Haba. It's preparation for the world to come, for the revelation of Hashem in the future, for Ge'ulah. And these themes are the three topics of the three tefillahs: Friday night after Kedashta, Shabbos Day Yisrach Moshe, and Shabbos Mincha Ata Echad. One can have a look at that and can see this emerging very clearly from it. So this is a second, another theme that runs through Tefillah. We spoke last week about the Ata, the second person, third person parallel and paradox, the Ava Yira process. This is another theme that I just wanted to mention, really runs through the Siddur in many different ways, and have a look at this, hopefully after pointing it out. It's something that will be noticed. These are the three elements of Tefillah, beyond the raw bakosha that we have. By the way, this double element of Tefillah, if we split these into two aspects, it reminds us again of what we opened up with right at the beginning in the first shir on Tefillah, because the truth is our Siddur and our Avodas Hashem in the Beis Knesset, in the shul, really consists of two parts. It consists of us speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is what we call Tefillah, and it consists of hearing Hashem speaking to us, which is what we call Kriyas HaTorah in particular. And this is built into two elements of davening, and or Siddur, as I explained, the Siddur combines both Tefillah and other mitzvahs, and it's built into the very halachas of the structure and building of a shul. A shul has two focus points, and we perhaps don't notice this or think about this, but next time we go into shul, we should realize this. This is reflecting halachas. This is customs in the Rambam when he speaks about the structure of how a shul should look. in Hilchos Tefillah, the 11th period of Hilchos Tefillah, there are two focal points, and this isn't a coincidence, this is halachic, in how a shul operates. There is the Aron HaKodesh, which is where we turn, representing us turning to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We will see a little bit later in the share, when we daven, we are meant to daven in the direction of the Aron, which in turn is meant to be in the direction of the Beis HaMikdash. It's us turning to Hashem and helping us see ourselves as Oimeid Lifnei HaMakom, as standing in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's the direction we concentrate towards and focus as we are davening to Hashem. It's in the front of the shul. And then there's something else. There's the bimah. The bimah in the middle of the shul, from where we proclaim the Devar Hashem through Kriyas HaTorah, or indeed in the olden days where the Rav would stand when he gave a drasha. This is how the Rambam passes it. In other words, the teaching of Torah, whether through Kriyas HaTorah or through a drasha that's given, takes place or should take place from the bimah. And the Aron HaKodesh is the structure of the Heichol connected the Beis HaMikdash towards which we daven. So these reflect two elements of Tefillah, the top down and bottom up, united by the third element, which is Ge'ulah. And this gives us further insight into the ideas that we discussed right at the beginning of Samoch, Ge'ulah, Tefillah, but now seeing how these three threads really run their way throughout davening. So this is the next point I wanted to make. This leads us into a closer look at something that I really can't let us finish our series on Siddur without discussing, which is the concept of Kedusha. Now, Kedusha is a word that runs through the very essence of what Tefillah is, holiness, roughly translated as holiness. It is obviously a bracha in Amidah, the third bracha after Kadosh. But for the context of this discussion, I don't really want to focus so much on that, but I want to talk about the concept of Kedusha, because it is really the concept of Kedusha in davening that demands of us to have a minyan, or one of the reasons why we need a minyan. There are several reasons why we need a minyan when we daven, but two of the most fundamental ones are, firstly, so that we form a tzibur, a community, so that we can fulfill communal obligations. Not only are we meant to daven as individuals, but we are also meant to daven as a tzibur, as a community. And this is what we refer to as a minyan. One form of tefillah b'tzibur that we do is obviously the chazan, the Baal Tefillah, the shliach tzibur, davening aloud. So we are literally engaged in communal tefillah. So we daven twice. We daven once privately, and the second time we daven together as a tzibur, and that's only possible when one has a minyan. Arguably, according to some poskim, even when we daven our quiet hamidah, doing so in the presence of a minyan is an additional aspect to tefillah, but that's tefillah b'tzibur. But there's a separate halachic reason why we need a minyan, and this is the concept of davar shebikdusha. Ein davar shebikdusha pachos me'asara. One cannot proclaim words of Kedusha unless one has 10 people present. And this is the second concept of why we need 10 people present. This is a Gemara in Brachos, which learns this out. And this is derived from the Nikdashti B'soich B'nei Yisrael, Pasuk in Sefer Vayikra, from which we learn it's only B'soich B'nei Yisrael when we have a community of people that one can have a Dover Shebikdusha proclaimed. Now, this has become, sadly, very relevant, obviously, at the moment, when legally we are not allowed to have minyanim, but it's also relevant whenever one davens alone. When one davens alone, one cannot claim Kedusha. Now, the most obvious occasion when one misses Kedusha, when one doesn't have Kedusha, is one doesn't have Chazar Sashat, one doesn't have repetition of the Amidah, and therefore, one doesn't proclaim Davar Shebikdusha, one is unable to say Kedusha. Similarly, without a minyan, one can't say Kaddish, because again, Ein Davar Shebikdusha Pachas Me'asara. And finally, there are perhaps other times we say Kedusha in Tefillah, and this is again a Machlokas HaPoskim, but you will know that in Birchas Kriyas Shema, before Shema, we say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. We have a structure of Tefillah there similar but not identical to Kedusha. And similarly, in Uvalat Tzion, at the end of davening, before Aleinu, we also there say a kedusha of sorts, interwoven with Aramaic expressions, kadosh, 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 Hashem Yimlosh, Baruch Hu, Hashem Komo, containing the three elements that we are used to from Tefillah. And according to some poskim, this is also said in a minyan, even though the halacha we paskin that one doesn't need to do so. Now, what makes something a davar shebekdusha? And this is an important question to ask, even in terms of practical ramifications. What happens, for example, if I am unable to daven with a minyan, but I'm joining a minyan via Zoom, as some shuls have been operating? Now, I can answer amen to the bracha, because I don't need to, even though I'm not directly hearing the bracha into my own ears, because it's arriving to my ears via the interface of electronic media. Nonetheless, I know a bracha has been made, and the Mishnah tells us, it talks about the shul in Alexandria, in which they would answer amen even at the back of the shul. It was such a large shul that people couldn't hear a bracha, and they would answer amen even though they couldn't hear the original bracha through the signaling of a flag from the bimah, from which we learn that you can answer amen if you know a bracha has taken place, and you know you're answering amen to that bracha even though you can't hear the original bracha. So this is in terms of answering amen. In terms of fulfilling one's obligation, for example, hearing the Megillah via Zoom, I'm not going to go into the halachic discussion now, but the majority opinion of the poskim is that one cannot do so. However, everyone would agree, or almost everyone would agree, that I'm not in the presence of a minyan via davening over Zoom. So even if there's a minyan at the other end, I'm not with the minyan, which means to say that via Zoom, one cannot answer Kedusha or Baruch Hu, for that matter, because both Kedusha and Baruch Hu are aimed at Kedusha, Pachas Me'asora. Nonetheless, one can say, along with the community, Yimloich and Kadosh and Baruch Kvod Hashem and Komo, because these are psukim. So one can say it as psukim, but not as a declaration. This forces us to think a little bit more carefully about what we mean when we talk about a davar shebekdusha and the declaration of a davar shebekdusha. In particular, because not every davar shebekdusha even has the words Kodesh in it. Baruch Kvod Hashem in Komo doesn't have the words Kodesh in it. It talks about Kvod Hashem. Baruch Hu just seems to consist of a bracha. Kaddish, even though we call it Kaddish, Kaddish is Kadash Rabbi talks about many aspects of Hashem's name becoming great beyond the aspect of Tefillah. Yimloch Hashem Olam perhaps isn't part of Kedusha, but talks about Malchus. So let's just spend a little bit of time understanding what we mean by the concept of Kedusha. And that really gets us to ideas that we've spoken about previously, but just to remind ourselves of, the paradox almost at the heart of the concept of Kedusha. Because I'll teach us, Ein Melech below Om. There can't be a king without a people. In other words, even though in an absolute sense, Hashem is a king, but also he's a king in the sense of his relationship to the world. We say this, by the way, in Adon Olam. Adon Olam Hashem Molach, the Terem Kol Yitzin Israel. Hashem was the Melech before any creature was created. But Acharei Kichlos HaKol, once everything is done according to what he wants, then Azai Melech Shemo Nikra, then we'll be able to call him with the name of Melech. So we humans have the responsibility to make HaKadosh Baruch Hu the king. We discussed in previous weeks the concept of Bracha Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. We discussed Baruch Atah Hashem, the you and Elokeinu, but of course Melech HaOlam. The essence of Melech HaOlam is a declaration of the kingship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Nonetheless, there's two ways we can do this. When we do a mitzvah, we are talking about the personal connection to it. We're talking about our personal relationship to it. However, when we are doing a davar shebekdusha, we are declaring this as in an external manner. We say this in Kaddish. We say, may Yiskadal v'Yiskadash, may the name of Hashem become great. Baruch Kvod Hashem im Komo, meaning to say we recognize the knowledge of Hashem, our awareness of this, and this can be only done as part of a Siddur, as part of a community. And here we really have the paradox that the absolute Kedusha only belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Our role in creating Kedusha is because of the gap and the absence of Kedusha, because we don't experience the Kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where there's absolute perfection, our role in Kedusha, which is not the noun of Kedusha, the state of Kedusha, which is Hashem's alone, but the process of bringing about perfection, the verb, if you like, of Kedusha, that is only possible because we exist in a space where there isn't absolute Kedusha. So Dover Kedusha, in its halachic sense, is directly affirming my responsibility, my duty, my obligation, my chiyuv, my opportunity to increase Kedusha in the world. And this is what we're doing when we're saying Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. We're not just saying it as a request or as a tefillah. We're not just saying it as a statement of fact. Neither of those needs a minyan. One can say the psukim of Kodesh as psukim even if one doesn't have a minyan. If one wants to declare it as our role, as the essence of bridging the gap and bringing Kedusha, which is what we humans do, this is something that can be done only when we are doing so with a minyan, because it's only with a minyan that HaKadosh Baruch Hu shares of his Kedusha with us, and therefore we can bring about Kedusha in the world. We say, Ata Kadosh Shemcha Kadosh, Kedoshim B'chol Yom Ha'alocha Salah. You are holy, but it takes Kedoshim, those who share of the Kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can bring about Kedusha in the world. So this is the concept of Kedusha, central to so much of what we do in Tefillah. Now, if we look at what we say in Kedusha, we say Nekadesh Shemcha Ba'olam, in the same way as we wish to sanctify you, in the same way as they sanctify you in Shmei Morim, in the heavens above. Meaning to say, we are now using and saying the very words that the Malachim say. Now, this seems to contradict what we just said, which is that the essence of Dover Kedusha is specifically something said here in this world where there's an absence of Kedusha. And the answer to this is it's important to understand what the kashem, the like, which we are talking about in the Kadesh Shemcha Ba'olam, the commonality. When we are saying that we are sanctifying Hashem like the Malachim sanctify HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we mean to say we are saying the same words as them, the same content of Kedusha, but we are doing so in a very different manner, because Kedusha and Kaddish can only be declared by human beings. It's our imperfection, which means that we can add Kedusha, which is the essence of Ein Davar Shebekdusha, that our Kedusha can be said. So when we say we want to sanctify you like the Malachim sanctify you, what we mean to say is they are doing something very different. They are the Malachim. They have a closer awareness of the absolute Kedusha of Hashem. We want to sanctify you down here on earth because we can say Kedusha by saying and declaring that which they declare, but when we're saying it from our very human imperfection over here. And therefore we're reminding ourselves that when we strive Kedusha, we want to create here on earth that which naturally exists in Shmei Morim, in heaven. The Malachim are able to express the absolute truth as they see it, Shmei Morim in the heavens. We say that we want to uncover that truth down here on earth. That's the essence of what we are saying in Kedusha, and this is this which cannot be achieved by any individual. There are other forms of Kedusha that we can achieve. There's Kedusha that we can do as a private process. We can say Shema, we can say other forms of Kedusha by itself, but the purpose of saying Shema isn't to act upon Hashem's presence, it's to act on us. Shema Yisrael, we Klal Yisrael need to hear, it's directed to us. And that's why this isn't an act of tefillah. Shema is not an act of tefillah, it's an act of mitzvah. Mitzvahs we can do by ourselves, and in a broader sense, of course, through so doing that, they bring about an increase of the presence of Hashem in the world, and an increase of Kedusha in myself. But Dover Kedusha isn't acting on myself, it's by definition focused outwards. It's not the mitzvah of it. The Kedusha of saying Kedusha, or Kaddish, isn't that I'm doing a mitzvah. This isn't the biggest mitzvah in the world. In fact, it may well be just a mitzvah Drabanan to say it or declare it. Kriya Shema is one of the most important mitzvahs. Every day, twice a day, we need to say the mitzvahs, the declaration, the yichud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The difference is that Kriya Shema is directed to me. The Kedusha that's brought about is because the personal Kedusha that I bring in myself. Whereas Kedusha embedded in Tefillah is something else. That's outward focused. It's about changing the world, and to do that it needs a minyan. It's a type of tefillah or declaration that can only be done by definition in its public role, in a role of more than one yochid, because any one individual only has their own narrow angle. It's only when we have a tzibur, a community, a number of people, that we have a small Knesset Yisrael, a small gathering of Klal Yisrael. At that point, there's the possibility of Kedusha that transcends this world. If we want to transcend this world, we can do an individual act by ourselves, yes. We can do a mitzvah by ourselves, yes. If we want to transcend the world, bring transcendence to the world, it can't be done by a yochid, because each individual only has their own individual perspective, their own narrowness. It's only by breaking out of the ego, breaking out of the self, going beyond it, that transcendence can be achieved. The essence of the word Kedusha is that which is beyond, separated from the world, the Ramban explains in the beginning of Kedoshim. Therefore, Kedusha demands us to rise beyond ourselves, and therefore needs a minion. So this is the concept of Kedusha that I wanted to share. Since I've touched on this, I'll just conclude very briefly by saying that after we say the Kaddish, after we say we're going to sanctify Kadosh Baruch Hu like they do the Shmei Maron, we now clarify that the Shmei Maron in the heavens, even there, they don't have a perfect awareness of Hashem, and that's why we carry on Baruch Kvod Hashem in Komoi, and on Musaf we say Lomas on Baruch Yemei, on Musaf we say Aye Makom Kavodo, where is Makom Kavodo? In other words, even the Malachim themselves don't really understand it. Baruch Kvod Hashem in Komoi, from his place. Meaning, as much as we understand and want to bring Kedusha, as much as even the Malachim, who are also, after all, only created beings, want to bring Kedusha, Melo Kol Haaretz Kavodo, nonetheless, Baruch Kvod Hashem in Komoi, the real Kvod Hashem, derives from Makomo, which is beyond anything we are able to experience. Finally, we conclude with Yimloich Hashem L'Olam, Elokayich Tzion L'Dor V'Halaloka. This has 3 sections to it. Yimloich Hashem L'Olam, number 1. Elokayich Tzion L'Dor V'Dor is section number 2. And Halaloka is section number 3. By the way, often we misgroup it because of the way it's sung in shul. And we say Yimloich Hashem L'Olam Elokayich Tzion, comma, L'Dor V'Dor Halaloka. So this is the incorrect parsing of the verse. It's Yimloich Hashem L'Olam, comma, Elokayich Tzion L'Dor V'Dor, comma, Halaloka. And these are 3 proclamations. It isn't a description because it's part of Kedusha, it's a declaration. The first is Yimloich Hashem L'Olam, Hashem should reign forever. The second is Elokayich Tzion L'Dor V'Dor, your God, Tzion, for generation after generation. In other words, the first part is general. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is king. It's a statement of our recognition of it. He is king L'Olam. L'Olam means eternity, forever, beyond this world at all. If you like, the first part is theology. It's expressing an idea of hashkafa, of philosophy. The second part is reflecting something very practical. It's politics. Saying HaKadosh Baruch Hu is our king. He's the king over Tzion. He's the king over Eretz Yisrael, over us, over Klal Yisrael, over the world, over his capital, Yerushalayim. L'Dor V'Dor, for each generation, is very different to L'Olam. L'Olam is above human affairs. It's for infinity, for eternity, beyond our time that we humans exist. And then in L'Dor V'Dor, we recognize it for each generation, accepting Hashem's kingship, his political authority over us. And this is therefore the second element of it. Now, if we are effective in doing that, and if we do it properly, it's immediately effective. As we said, it's not just a declaration, it's Kedusha. It's an act of bringing the Kedusha of Hashem into the world and making HaKadosh Baruch Hu, being Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore immediately we follow it with Hallelujah, with an expression of praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this is the different aspects of Kedusha and the nature of the bracha of Kedusha, of the prayer, the Kedusha that we say. So that's the second point really that I wanted to use the time available today. The third element of what I want to speak about, and hopefully we may even have time for a fourth before we finish this, is again revisiting something that we discussed at the beginning. So we discussed today, so far we've discussed the triple themed element of Bria, bottom up, Torah, top down, combined by Geula, the aspiration of elevating the earth to the heaven, that led us to, in a sense, dividing the three into two components, bridged, yes, by Geula, but there's Tefillah, which is us speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's Torah, which is Hashem speaking to us, both built into the structure of the Beis HaMikdash, Beis HaMedrash, the Beis Knesset, the Shul, the Bima, and the Aron HaKodesh. And this led us into a discussion about the role of Kedusha, which is built around the gap between heaven and earth. In heaven is absolute Kedusha. There's the Kedusha the Malachim are able to recognize. In earth, because of our lack of recognition, we can do something else. We can do Dover Shebek Kedusha. Not just a statement of fact, but bringing of Kedusha into the world, acting on the world. And this is something that we can only do as a tzibur, as a community. So this is the next element of it. Now, again, I just want to, before I move on, just belabor this point and really spell it out. When we are doing mitzvahs, we are making changes in ourselves, which hopefully bring Kedusha to the world. But when do we directly act on the levers of the mechanics of the world, of the changing the world by looking outwards? That is only Dover Shebek Kedusha. That's the uniqueness of being able to say a Kaddish or a Kedusha, and this is what tragically and sadly we're missing at the moment when we talk about Dover Shebek Kedusha, because we can't have minyanim unless we break the law, which is obviously wrong. So this is the Dover Shebek Kedusha. I want to conclude with looking at a final aspect of Tefillah, which is always my favorite part of davening, and it's my favorite part of davening due to a weakness, not a strength. It's my favorite part of davening because, in a sense, it's missing part of what Tefillah is about. One of the greatest difficulties of Tefillah is how formalized it is. What we want to do is we want to cry out to Hashem. We want to call from our hearts about the pain and distress that we experience, the difficulties and struggles that we experience. This is one of the challenges of Tefillah, because Tefillah is so much not like that. Tefillah is bound by very strict halachas about exactly how we're meant to say it, the very fixed text, a text deliberately built around the classic language of psukim, and therefore in a type of Lashon HaKodesh which is formal and dignified. It's got a set amount of times and very fixed times when we can do it. And it seems to lack this very spontaneous outpouring of what we're feeling and desperate cry from a broken heart that we want to give. And the reason for this is because both paths are important. Of course it's important to have that spontaneous cry to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Of course that sort of cry from a lost place of Kaini Lamas of Tani, a place of darkness and pain and so on. Of course that's something vital to do. But that by definition can't be created through fixed tefillah. So what is fixed tefillah about? If it's not about answering our needs, the answer is it's a halachic obligation of Avodas Hashem, of service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we discussed at the beginning. It's not us approaching HaKadosh Baruch Hu at this point for our personal needs. It's about us expressing our dependence on Him as part of the creation. And therefore we only daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the form of tefillah, B'loshen Rabim, in the plural. All the tefillahs that we say are always in the plural. What we are saying is, we are part of creation, we are part of Klal Yisrael. To the degree that we are part of creation, part of Klal Yisrael, we recognize that we are dependent on HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we need Him, and therefore we daven to Him. And it is for this reason that it is Avodas Hashem. Crying out to Hashem for our own personal needs reflects emunah, reflects bitachon, but that's something else. There isn't the Avodas Hashem of Tefillah. In fact, if you remember from our very early discussion, the Rambam is of the view, the Rambanim, is of the view, that Tefillah is not min HaTorah. The Rambam holds that Tefillah is min HaTorah. The Ramban, Nachmanides, holds that daily Tefillah is only Drabanan. But crying out to Hashem when we're distressed, that even the Rambam agrees, is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's a chiyuv min HaTorah, min HaMeita Karasika. I call out from the streets. That's something different. Formal Tefillah, Avodas Hashem, has to take place in a mokum avodah, in a place of service, which is what a base knesset is, at formal times, with a formal text, written based upon the language of the Nevi'im, because this is the only way we know how to address Hashem. It's not spontaneous self-expression, but it's telling us what Chazal have fixed as the absolute needs of mankind, the relationship of mankind to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why it's Avodas Hashem. The cry of Tefillah, the calling out to Hashem in desperation, can take place anywhere. In Halacha, it's brought that when one's going through a time of tragedy and disaster, a siege of a city, a famine. In the olden days, this is the figures in the Seches Ta'anis. They would declare a fast day, and everyone would go out into the streets to daven, into the city square to daven. Why would one daven in the city square in the streets rather than in the shul? Because this is a different sort of tefillah. This is the tzaka, the cry, which therefore is done outside the formal place of service of Hashem in the shul, which is the Makam Avodah. Tefillah is not an act of taking, it is an act of recognition. The personal cry is an act of need, speaking about the human need. Now, we build a structure in Tefillah of one place where the place can say it's the ideal time to engage in tzaka, in the past cry. And this is after we finish the Amidah, and we finish saying Sim Shalom, there is an addition to Tefillah. This is based on the Gemara in Brachas, Zion on the base, where the Gemara brings a whole series of private tefillahs that different Amoraim used to say, different of the Gemara Rabbanim used to say. And if you look at the Gemara, there are a whole string of private tefillahs, some of which we say on certain occasions, and some of which we never say at all. I think there's 10 or 11 examples there of different personal tefillahs that the Amoraim used to say. One of these personal tefillahs is Elokai Netzar L'Shem Meirah, etc. This is the tefillah of Ma Baravino, one of the Amoraim over there. And for whatever reason, that personal tefillah of Ma Baravino has become fixed into our davening. All of these personal tefillahs have been fixed into our davening. Some of them turn up in the tefillah of Yom Kippur, some of them turn up in the tefillah of Mavor Shema Chodesh that we say on Shabbos when we announce the Chodesh of Yeratzon. So some of these tefillahs, 3 of them entered tefillah, the rest haven't entered our fixed tefillah. But the point of this is that this is praying, this is davening after tefillah. That's what the Geder, the Londus, the halakhic structure of what it is. That is because it's after tefillah that we say it. And the whole point of this is that it's meant to be personal tefillah. And it's this aspect of it that makes it actually more relatable to you. I said to you that I was going to speak now about my favorite part of tefillah, and the kind that Siddur showed me. And the reason it's my favorite part of tefillah is because actually I can relate to it better. Because it's the place for the tzaka, the cry, and the self-speak. It's the only part of tefillah which we daven in the personal sense. It's the part of tefillah that has an emotion to it. It's easier to relate to it. It has an emotiveness to it deliberately because it's a personal tefillah. It wasn't the one created by Chazal, by the Amtei Knesset. It was created much later in Jewish history, in the era of the Amoraim, in the era of the Gemara. And it is important, therefore, that we use this time, this slot in tefillah, for personal tefillah, for personal prayer. We need to make sure that we don't let the kind of tefillah also become a formalized ritual part of tefillah. This is the point at which we are meant to engage in tzaka, in crying out to Hashem. And therefore, beyond all tefillah, it's important that we engage at this point in davening in our own personal tefillah. Rabbi Yaakov Emden published a Siddur. Yaakov Emden was one of the Gedolei Hador in Germany over 2 centuries back. He created a Siddur that he published when each of my siblings and cousins were born. Our grandparents, my mother's parents, gave us a Siddur. The Siddur I was given was Rabbi Yaakov Emden's Siddur, and that it's a very precious Siddur to me. And I was looking at some of the things he says on tefillah because of that. And remarkably, in his Siddur, he doesn't just print any kind of tefillah at this point. He prints all the different tefillahs of the Gemara. And he says these are the tefillahs that all the Amoraim created, as each one wanted to say for themselves. And at this point, each person should say for themselves their own tefillah and express their own needs, because this is the point that one should do it. And he says one should make sure that one doesn't fix oneself or stick oneself to a text of tefillah at this point, because this is the time for private tefillah. So I have run out of time over here. I'm going to stop. I have been asked in the next couple of weeks, even though this was meant to be a 4-part series in Siddur, to speak a little bit about certain halachic matters. And 3 things have come up over the course of the shiurim that I've been asked to speak about, and therefore I would use 1 or 2 weeks to speak about them. The first thing I was asked to speak about is women and tefillah, what the halachas of women davening are, and I will address that. The second thing is interruptions in tefillah, and I'll speak about that. And the third thing is how one physically davens. Because of course this shiur has been very speech-centered, but in fact this isn't the way it's meant to be. All my bones are meant to say, Hashem Yikamocha. There's halachas about how we stand and how we daven. And one of the things I've tried to share in this series is almost a meditative and immersive and holistic look at what tefillah is. And it wouldn't be true to tefillah to miss out the holistic nature of it, the fact that there's postures and ways that I'm meant to stand when I daven. So I will try in the next couple of weeks to speak about some of the halachas of tefillah, and including, as I said, women's place in tefillah, posture, how one stands as one davens, and interruptions in tefillah. And then hopefully that will bring to an end this mini-series on Siddur, and we will move on to another topic. I will also say I'm open to suggestions as to what our next topic or mini-series should be, so please feel free to email me with these suggestions. I'm going to stop now. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, we'll stop for this evening.
Hi, Rabbi Zobin. Thank you so much for that. That was amazing. I had a question in terms of the concept of kedusha in a minyan.
Yes.
Relating to, so obviously a minyan is made up of 10 men. Which,
yes.
So technically I understand the kedusha and kaddish in relating to men. But does that mean conceptually that women cannot bring that form of kedusha into the world because they're more like a bystander to the minyan as part of, instead of making up the minyan for kedusha?
Okay, that's an excellent question. Probably the halacha reflects 2 facts over here. The first thing is that it doesn't impose Siddur obligations. And therefore, since there is no chiyuv to do it, it remains for a woman a davar she'eino mitzvah v'osa, something a woman can join in and do, but there isn't an obligation to do. And the role, therefore, of bringing kedusha is linked, of creating the minyan to do it, is linked to the chiyuv to so do. So in the form of bringing kedusha in the world by turning inwards and creating one's own space for kedusha, is something that any individual can do. The form of kedusha which is turned outwards, which is direct manipulation of the world, for a man is a chiyuv, and for a woman is not a chiyuv, it's not an obligation.
So is it possible, or just not an obligation?
It's not an obligation, it's possible, but as a participant in a minyan rather than creating a minyan, because of not chiyuv, that's correct, yeah. Which means to say, thank you actually for giving me the opportunity to spread it out, there is definitely a milah in halacha if a woman can to daven with a minyan. It's not a chiyuv to do so, but it is a quality of tefillah, an additional quality of tefillah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. A pleasure. I wish everyone a good evening.
Thank you.
Pleasure, thank you.